Hi! Today I'm talking with Johan Lybaert. We talked about combining Scrum and XP practices with a team of more of 60 people delivering software every 2 weeks for more than 20 years in a row, and the challenges and the advantage of doing it. Believing in people before they believe in themselves. I'm Johan from WhoIsagile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button, because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello everyone, and hello Johan.
Hello.
Johan Lybaert.
Yeah, nice.
How are you?
Fine. Almost retired. I've decided in July, so this month, to stop working in a daily effective role. So the only things I'm still doing are ad hoc consulting or coaching assignments.
Indeed, and let's bring us a little bit where we jumped right into that, and we both know each other, and I want to show also a little bit where we are. And I am in Ghent at this moment, and you retired, or like you say, almost retired to Cegeka, if I'm correct.
Yeah, indeed. So I decided 5 years ago, when the corona started, to go to my second residence in Cegeka and to make it my first residence. So I'm living now at the seaside in the summertime, and in the wintertime we move to Spain, Calpe. So to get always the sea and the good climate. So this is my new way of living.
And wow, and you're and we are also because we're in the same country, also in the same time zone. So recording this on a Saturday morning, and well, before we jump into the questions, for the people that don't know you, tell them a little bit about who are you.
But I would describe myself as a passionate person involved in application development. So 42 years I've been working in application development in different companies, each time with the challenge, how can we make high quality software in the most effective way, getting the things for the customers that they really want, even if they don't know what they want, and that you can maintain this application for the coming 20, 30 years. So that has been my challenge during my whole career. And I started in the 80s. So this was the time when the waterfall methodologies came up, where people thought that if they would describe everything on paper during 1-2 years, then afterwards they can build it. So we had more time in that time, so people were not waiting for applications that would go live in the coming 3-6 months, but 3-6 years was the right vision that they had. And my frustration was created at the moment that working during 2 years only on paper and making a lot of documents that afterwards nobody will read because it's too much. You can't assimilate all the documents that have been created. It's just a waste of time. And time is changing so fast that even what has been written down and have been approved doesn't make sense anymore. So there, the agile way of thinking and working in an iterative way of doing development, and this was the period that the accelerated development methodologies came up, and so I mean, anticipating on what afterwards will become the agile Scrum way of working. So that has been the red line during my whole career. How can we make application teams the most effective and make sure that we deliver what the customer really wants?
And with quality, and I really like that you stated also for that long period, because I remember the first time we met, we talked also. I think you were already involved in the Venturis project, or at least that's the first moment. I recommend. I still know, and as far as I know, that product line is still live, so people are still working on it.
It's a beautiful example of. 2004, we started the rewriting of a big complex administrative application called Venturis for social security funds. It was estimated at 20,000 man days to redevelop it from mainframe COBOL to Java. And we, at the start of this project, we decided to go full agile. It was 2004, so it was really the early days of the agile movement, applying Scrum and XP practices. And I was lucky that I found some people around me, like Jan van Reusel, who was really also a big believer in this is the right way to go. My background is also making sure that people are doing the right things the right way with a lot of discipline. So I'm a strong believer that you have to do this in a very disciplined way and force and oblige people to apply the right practices and not to discuss if they want it or they don't want it. I mean, so if you look to Scrum combined with the XP practices, which is not in a lot of places that they are doing it, then you can really get a very good result. Today, so we are now 2023, so 20 years later, this application is still running at a very low maintenance cost. There have been audits after 10 years to see if we could go further with it. Those audits were very positive. And the main thing was, we were 100% test coverage. We have been refactoring the whole time, and delivery every 2 weeks, a new release in production. So this is,
and that's for 20 years, or at least
for the last 20 years. Yeah. So this is for me a beautiful example of it is possible, and with a relatively small maintenance team, they are enhancing it still every day with new feature because the legally situation is changing every month, every 2 months. So a lot of new things were introduced. A lot of new people were introduced from the initial staff. I think nobody's there anymore. So they're all new people that could get involved in this big complex application, more than millions of lines of code. But because it was written in a test-driven development approach, the code was self-explaining on each part where it was. So the missing things, and that is the involvement of the methodology, was a domain-driven design. So it's a big monolith, which is not good for application. It should be. So the later big applications we developed, like Groeipaket, child allowance for Belgium, has been rewritten in 2019, I think. This was done in domain-driven design approach, where we had 9 sub-applications. So I think it is possible to make very big, complex applications maintainable for the coming 20, 30 years. So if you do the things yeah.
If you do it correctly, and I think at the moment that you started it, like you said, 2004, extreme programming was still the big agile methodology. Scrum was not as big as it is today. So I think that was a nice combination. You started out immediately with indeed the technical practices, making sure the quality was there. These days, a lot of people, when they want to go agile, they think, oh, we just need Scrum. No, you need the technical excellence, and this project Venturis was a nice example, even with a large team, because
the team of 60 people. So
exactly, we're talking sometimes about, oh, we want to scale agile. It's hard, but this was done with a large team, right? Well, maybe not right from the start, but very early on there was a large team.
Yeah, one of the things that was typical in a waterfall approach was an independent test team. So we took the decision of no testers on board, doing things the first time right. So no testers. And this was why no testers? How can you build a big application without no testers? because testing is a responsibility of everybody. So not only of an independent test group, but it is the responsibility of each developer, each analyst, to make sure that everything is tested the first time right. So I mean, and this also has been a very drastic decision that we took. No, everyone, because we were working with an independent test group. So we stopped their contract and we decided there is no testers. But every story has its tests, of course, and they have been implemented. So 100% coverage of the test code. So, I mean, there is half of the effort is testing, but it's not done by independent people. I mean, I believe, and that's also one of the pitfalls of waterfall, that it is impossible for an independent test team to know what they should test, because things have been involved, have been changed, and not always documented. So if they base themselves on the initial documents, then they are writing the wrong tests and doing the wrong, giving the wrong comments and stealing a lot of work. In that time, people were estimating 25-30% of the time is going to test activities. So yeah, we removed that, but we have given.
But you doubled the testing in a sense.
We have given the time to the developers and the testers to do all the right things. And of course, also the business, getting the feedback loop closed every 2 weeks, getting back the feedback from the business that what we have implemented is the right interpretation of the business requirement. Also, that's sometimes people are forgetting that also that the 2 weekly loop in Scrum is very important, and making sure that you give them a demo and afterwards a test environment where they can test. This is not an easy job, and that was the beginning of DevOps. So you're forced to create an whole build continuous deployment street so that people can do this, and it costed us a lot of effort to get this done within 1 day, 2 days, one touch on a button at the end. But also there, spending a lot of time in making automatic builds was a very important investment.
Yeah, I still remember the first visits to I've never worked on the project for clarity, but I've visited a few times, and I was really impressed right from the start when I heard about everything that was set up, the effort that people put in. Also the I would say the proudness of the people. They really loved explaining what they were doing, because everybody believed very hard in this way of working. Right from the start, so that was.
That's the culture part of an agile software factory, making sure that people are proud of what they are doing and that they understand what they are doing, because they're not just doing it because the boss told us we have to do it. No, they have to do it because they know this is the best way to write high quality software. And that's my mission. That's my job to make. So getting people being proud of being a good developer, a good analyst in this world of complex projects is a culture that can only be created by a lot of training, by a lot of knowledge exchange between the people. And also that was a big change, because the old managers were thinking, what are you doing at the kickoff of a new iteration? 60 people together in one room, explaining them what are we going to build the next 2 weeks. And then going in subgroups and discussing some of the things that could get improved, the retrospective and the things like that. So people say, oh, it's 60 people, half day. So that's a lot of Mondays that we are wasting. And they are seeing that as waste. But I'm saying, no, we are just investing in doing the right things right. I've seen the 20 years of before, I saw the issues that I couldn't resolve in the waterfall approach. It was making sure that everybody knows what we are building. It was very difficult, and to get them involved in really making sure that they feel we are building it together. And this is what we managed to do with all those Scrum rituals, getting this knowledge exchange, this joint culture of building it together. And be able to tell each other if you're not doing the right thing, you should do this, this, and this, coaching each other. And it's a coaching peer-to-peer, not coaching from the top to the bottom. And this is really what you want to create. But I notice it's not so easy in big banks or under other environments where we have tried to do some HR coaching to create this kind of culture, because you need to get it, this mindset from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, and I think you started out the way you created that project, like you said, with some of your customers. That was not always easy because you needed to convince them also within your own company when this was started. But I think also at the same time, if you look back, you said 60 people, but there's a lot of people that have moved on, and I think it would be really hard to estimate or underestimate how many people have been changed by this project. How many? I guess there's more than 100 people that have been involved, that have learned it by doing it.
More, because at the end of my career at Cegeka, we were with more than 1,000 people doing this way of working. We have introduced it in all our different projects and different industries. We have introduced in different countries, so also in Romania, in Italy, Germany. So I mean, and because we had this success story of Venturis, people were really impressed. We organized Agile Software Factory visits, where you visited us several times with customers or prospects. I did guided more than 100 visits. I mean, and people were always at the end of this visit saying, "Oh, this would be nice if we could do it at our company, but we will never be able to make it." And I was always surprised by this kind of conclusion, that it seems to be a mission impossible to get this high level of culture, way of working. And I think the main reason was that they were afraid if we would ask our developers to apply XP practices, pair programming, refactoring, test-driven development, they will probably leave our company. So this is strange, because in my eyes, this is the only way to deliver high-quality software. And if people would leave because you ask them to do the right things right, I mean, I'm surprised. I'm convinced it's not true. And the contrary will probably happen. You will attract more people instead of that people would leave. But okay, so I mean, so people will.
Well, we will attract the right people, and maybe indeed have the wrong people leave it. Yeah. If people don't care about quality, are we sure that we want to work with them?
If they don't want to work in a group and want to share, one of the big issues in software development is the code standards, making sure that the software code is readable, maintainable by every person who go into the code base. And there was a time where people were really working on their own, not talking to each other, and everybody has his part of the code base, and nobody else could touch their code base because they couldn't understand it, even if they were applying the same code standards, but they were not. Everybody has his own slang of a code standard. So in the end, you could recognize in the code base who has written this, and this is not okay. Today, I mean, it should be impossible to really identify part of the code base and say, "Oh, this is from Eve." It should not be, because if you work in a good Scrum team applying pair programming, it's never from Eve. It's always from at least 6 people.
Exactly.
So this is the way of how I think the positive evolution of software development. But it remains, and that's surprising, it remains even in 2023 a big challenge for a lot of companies to do the things in the right way. So I'm surprised.
Indeed. Let's move to that. One of the first question: what is something people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Well, what they usually don't know about me is maybe my initial background. So I had an education in the military school, cadet school, and then afterwards military school. I was in the same years of our king, Philip. So it's an education where you learn a lot of skills which are not the typical management skills, or I would say skills that are in the industry found back by people. People are going to a business school to learn some of those skills. But being educated as an officer, you learn that working with people is not trivial, and that creating this team spirit and making sure that people get the best out of themselves and working together in a disciplined way is the only way to achieve big goals. And so that's part of my background that maybe a lot of people don't know, because I left the police force in 92, so already more than 30 years ago. But it's still part of how I think and how I act. So, and it helps me in influencing the environments where I'm working in. So I'm taking ownership, and I'm empowering the people around me to do the right things right.
Mm. Indeed. And well, I'm not sure if we talked about it before, but I'm not surprised, because indeed many ways on how you act. My father didn't serve in the army, but he worked as a civilian in the army, and yeah, I've recognized some of the ways that people around him worked also in the way you acted. And yeah, it's about setting goals. It's about, okay, we want indeed discipline in the agile way, like you said earlier on, that really helped us to get certain projects going. And yeah, it's not surprising to me.
Giving empowerment is also giving responsibility. So I'm a strong believer that you have to empower at the lowest level, the people doing their part of the job. But you really have to do this. And so this also means that creating there a culture of peer control is much control in the sense steering each other to get this high level of quality that you want to achieve. Is really an ingredient of a good HR culture.
And in the army, it's as of course even more, because their lives are at stake. And so if you're working in a team and your colleague is not doing his part of the job, your own life might be at stake. So of course you will push him or her at that time, I think it was only him, to do their job. It's different in the agile way, but at the same time it's the same, because if your colleagues are not doing their work, your project will suffer from it, or you will have to take care of it, and then it doesn't work. So I think there's a nice analogy.
And the army is spending a lot of time in educating people, in getting the drill right, doing the right things right. And I think that's the same. You have to find the time with your teams to educate them. This is the right way to do it. If you never show them, how can they know? So, I mean, you have to educate them, show them, and let them do exercises together. And so also spending there enough effort, time with the team is an essential part of creating this high quality HR software factory. So,
indeed, I didn't think about it, but in the army, well, luckily we're partially at war with the Ukraine war now going on, but most of it, the Belgian army is not at war. So, for example, they do most of the time practices and drills and everything. I assume also at the time that you were learning, but so it was not so much on the real action. So a lot of much more time was spent on learning, I think, than doing things. That's also, it's interesting, because indeed in software world we keep thinking we want to put production, we go to production all the time, and we don't practice enough. So what you're saying is,
I mean, the education system is what it is. It's not so good in my eyes. But if people come from school in a company and they need to work on a project, if they are not surrounded by more media and senior people telling them how to do the right things right, then it will not happen. And so then people are just experimenting, which is not wrong to do experiments, but I mean, experimenting because you think this is the right way is not the right thing to do. So,
well, especially if you don't get any feedback, and also another thing that's I didn't even think about it, but in schools, most of the people that teach you, they have no experience in real life. I mean, where in the army, the people that train you have been trained and have been going the exact same thing. So this is a little bit what you were doing also with Ventura, is that okay, we teach people, we learn them, but it's by people on the floor, having been writing code, having doing it. So it's all, the whole ecosystem is there to help people improve themselves. That's interesting. Let's move to that next question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing before, what you've been doing now, what would have become of you? Do you have any idea?
It's a good
kind of strange to ask it to someone who's near retirement, but still.
No, but I've been changing positions in my career several times. So I did business development work. So also there, I mean, instead of doing the operational application development, I went into the commercial business development work. In the beginning, I thought, why should I do this? But I noticed that because you know what you're talking about, because you have been doing it, it's very easy to get this trusted level of people in saying, okay, this is the right person, the right company that I want to work with, because what he's telling me, it makes sense. And he has been doing this. So if I engage with him, then it would probably end in a good way. And I could really, because I've been convincing people who have been hesitating to do big changes, big investments. And the last one was on the payroll for the social security, social secretaries. They are all making the same payroll engine. They are trying to make the same payroll engine. And I told them, I mean, you should do this together because, I mean, why? So it's convincing people in it. So, I mean, this has been a part of my career that I was surprised that I would be a good business developer. But afterwards, it makes sense to do this. And so I've been changing this role several times. So is that an answer on your question?
That's definitely an answer to my question, and it's indeed when you look at your full career, you moved in multiple directions, but at the same time, there is, like you said earlier on, a kind of red line between some of these things, and I think also in many of the conversations that we had over the years, you always keep finding, okay, what's the next challenge? How could we influence? How could we think bigger in a sense? And that's also a kind of business development, I would say.
Well, because we created this spin-off, the agile in the core unit, because companies were asking us, help us in guiding ourselves towards a more agile way of working. But I mean, I was always a little bit skeptical by doing it, because I say, being as a coach at the side of the customers, I don't know if I would. I mean, I've worked with Jutta Eckstein, but she came to Ventura's project 5 days, and so that was the coaching that we got. Was really observing and giving us some courage to take some of the decisions that we were hesitating to take. Having a full-time coach in my team, I would say, I mean, where is the ownership? You're not part of it, you're at the side of the team. And I think the real coaches should be in the team, should be part of the team. So having HR in the core as a coaching team was a little bit contradictory with my own thinking about it. But when we went into the companies where we did the HR coaching, I've tried to convince them that they should get involved also, the responsible persons of that company who were the sponsors of the HR coaching that said, but I mean, you should be really on the ground showing that you believe in it. I mean, it's not us. We can influence you and give you some teaching about how to do it, but in the end, we will not do it in your place. So
I fully agree. We need to be. It's I'm a big fan of pair coaching, and for me, big part of it is I'm working with you, with someone of the company, and I learn about the company, you learn about agile from me, and together we find what's needed, and that in that way preparing you to go along, and I leave after a certain while once you get up to speed, but trying to do it as much as possible. If you just go, yeah, it's difficult, and at the same time it's very interesting that these companies want someone full time all the time there, where that's in most cases that well, the advantage is when we are there all the time, we see things happening and we can give them a mirror, which if I would just show up for half a day or something, they might bullshit me around with saying how things are going. So that's a big difference. But at the same time, yeah, do you always want me full time? That I always find that interesting.
Again, my personal vision, which was not the vision of agile because we were guiding companies during 2 years, 3 years sometimes, is that the more you are there, the less you will, have an influence. So I'm a strong believer in being punctual there at certain moments, and to give them that mirror and messages and almost a mission. Look, do this, and we come back within 2 months and we see if you have done it or not. But this ownership is very important for them to change. And if you are full-time there, you become part of the team, and people are getting the feeling we are doing the right things. We even have a coach full-time. But I think getting this mirror every 2 months is probably more effective than getting it every day. In the end, you don't see it anymore.
Okay. And if you compare that, for example, I don't know how much you like the comparison of sport teams, but I think for Venturis at some point you also talked about, you used what was it, the cycling teams or something?
The metaphor of climbing the mountain. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, there in sport teams, you do have in many cases a full-time coach there. How does that fit in that metaphor?
Yeah, I think the leader of the team should be your coach. That's my point. It should not be.
Exactly.
The trainer is part of the team. It's not outside the team. He's part of the team, even if he doesn't play himself. You can't consider him as a coach in the sense of the trainer who is getting another person involved in helping me coaching. And this is also
right.
Sometimes they ask some extra people to come and have a look and but my understanding, I've been the trainer of a lot of teams. Each time I got involved in them, I was their sounding board, but I was also, in the end, accountable and responsible for the results.
For the work.
A coach who is not responsible for the results, that's a different way of coaching. So a trainer is responsible of the results, because if he doesn't get the results, he's fired.
Yeah, I fully agree there, and that is sometimes, that it's an important part of it, and which is indeed why internal, well, it doesn't, the contract itself is less important, but it's really that part where are you responsible and accountable for these kind of things.
Yeah.
Let's move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest challenge, and why is that a good thing for you?
Well, my biggest challenge at this moment in my career is finding the next way of how I would organize my life. So I've given me a challenge now to get a better golf player. But at the same time, I want to use my 42 years of experience in the IT industry still in a way that I can contribute in getting things better. So by doing this ad hoc kind of consulting or helping doing assessments, I read an article saying there are not enough people in the boardroom who understands what it takes to do that technical work. So maybe I should take some seats in a boardroom to to bring that part of my experience to the table and help them taking the right decisions in the boardrooms. So that's a little bit my next part of my career for the coming 10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And well, let me put so the second part of the question, the second part is, why is that a good thing? What is good for you about having this challenge?
But I think getting satisfaction of how you influence, I would say, the good working of a company, contributing to that with my experience and with my knowledge, guide them to this next level in maturity, that would give me a lot of satisfaction. So yeah. Being able to contribute to get to a better world in a certain way.
And it kind of brings me to that next question, because I know you as a very driven and a passionate person, and so I already hear in that previous answer about getting to a better world, contributing to a better world. But I want to go a little bit to the question below the question. Do you know where that drive, that passion to create a better world is coming from?
Where it's coming from, I think, if you look to the pyramid of Maslow, so the highest level of the pyramid is really getting satisfaction from things you realize. All the other levels are already there, and so getting the feedback from people around you that you're really making a difference by being there, by advising them, by giving them the mirror and giving advice. If you do this and this, you will see it will go better. Being a guide for a lot of people, that's what I think, how I can still contribute to teams, to organizations, and why shouldn't I do it? I mean, but I'm in a state, I'm 64 years old, so I mean, I'm at an age where I say, I mean, it's not a must anymore. So I moved from a result-oriented person to a more, I would say, the yellow person, inspiring people. And this is also the reason why I accepted this call, Yves. I mean, if I would really be retired, I would say, it doesn't make any sense to still have a call with Yves, because I mean, my own career is finished, and I can tell you and share some, but I want to inspire. So I mean, that's the reason, and that's still driving me. I mean, being there, giving inspiration, but at the same time, just enjoying daily life and carpe diem.
And also what I kind of hear in already in the talk, but probably also a little bit in the pre-talk, is that you what you said is you don't want to be there. Well, if clients are less interested in, and they're not really want to invest themselves, then for you it's very easy today to say, well, then let's not talk and let's not continue.
Yeah, it's
in a previous. It's a waste of time. I can imagine that in the previous part of your career, you kind of, maybe you felt, or depending on who you were working for, you felt more that you needed to do it, or because there needs to be money, there needs to be a company that needs to work. Today, it's really, or at least how I see it, is like, if you're not interested, I'm not interested, and I walk away very easy. That's what I'm hearing. I can definitely see that. And I think this is something we could all learn from and do it. It's very hard for me as an independent. It's hard sometimes to do that because, well, you need to have some money. But at the same time, I've noticed that if I really feel like the client is not invested, I'll just walk away. And actually, that's probably the best message and the best coaching I can give them. You're not investing. Why would you spend money on me? That doesn't make any sense.
No.
I had people indeed where I said something like that, and then they were really offended. And then 6 months later, they came back and, yeah, you were right. Maybe now is a better moment. We really want to learn from it.
Yeah, but that's, sometimes people think if they are paying you then they have done their job. But they have to change
and
it.
they have done their part, and yeah, well, we invested money. Well, it's more than money that you need to invest. It's it's a little bit like we would say, okay, I pay a personal coach and now all of a sudden I will be healthy. Well, no, you still need to do the training, you still need to do the work. It's very similar to that. Let's move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement, or at least the biggest achievement so far?
Oh, I think my biggest achievement is really, and you have to have chance in your career, I think, sometimes. But when I started at Ardatis, and afterwards it was taken over by Cegeka, we created this agile software factory. And the last 2 years of my career, I went to Atos, competing with Cegeka. We couldn't compete because, I mean, what they have is so unique in Europe, with their capabilities, the ability to execute, and that's a very, very big differentiator in winning contracts and in making sure that you deliver also, and those most of the time fixed price projects, application projects, that people can trust if they engage with you, that the things will happen like it should happen, and they will tell us customers, what to do to get there. And even if we don't know what we want, because it's one of my sayings is, I mean, customers don't know what they want, so you have to guide them and to help them in understanding that within this budget and within this time, this is what you can get at this minimum viable product that will do what should help you in increasing your business. And this is my biggest achievement, that we created there a team of more than 1,000 people, having this mindset, having this culture, having this thing. So I've been very proud of this part of my career. It was 1/3 of my career. So I've been very proud that I've been able to do that. And that's for me my testament, a little bit my achievement of my career. And I will have very good memories of that time.
And I think many people with you. I think when at some point the project is mentioned, or at least what I noticed when there are people who have been on that project, when at some point, I don't know if it's mentioned, that everybody that I've heard about it is really, very passionate about what they've learned, of how they've done it. And people might have moved on just like you, but still people are proud of whatever.
Yeah, and we created a culture which is so strong that it survives. It's not dependent on the fact that I'm there or someone else of the leaders is still there. So I mean, so the culture is so part of their DNA that they are and they will be doing the right things right in the coming year. So I mean, so that's a nice achievement, my friend.
Yeah, creating something that survives you, that doesn't depend on you, it's really, really indeed, it's nice. It's also a very nice example, because sometimes people say, yeah, but to do that you need the best people, and you need to, well, you have given a real nice example of, it's really the culture that creates the people. And maybe you were lucky with having the right people, or selected the right people at the start, but that's no longer the case in a sense that
you need good people. I'm sure you need, you don't need Messis and Ronaldos. You need good people who understand the game and who are disciplined, and come back to the discipline, and who are disciplined enough to work together as a team. And so pair programming or pair analyzing, doing things in pair is really part of this culture. I mean, you don't allow people to go solo and to do a part of the project on their own, and if they are not there, then there is an issue for the team and for the project. Now, this is not part of the game that we are playing. And if you get some of those very brilliant people, but who are solo players, then there's no place for you in my team. I mean, so this is the kind of culture that has been created with a lot of respect for each other. So I mean, we invested a lot in insights, the scholar game there, where people are really better understanding the way of thinking of their
Their peers.
member of their team member, and they say, okay, this is a red guy as main color, or this is a blue guy. I mean, they are looking to the world in a different way. You need all colors, so there are not good and bad colors. But if you don't understand the differences from each other, then you have a communication gap, and you're not working as a team. So we invested a lot in this kind of team working to get high performance teams in communication. Let people communicate to each other in the way that they really understand the differences in looking to the world.
Thanks for adding that, because it's indeed, it might have looked from the first part of our conversation that we were looking for not that many diversity, and actually, like you say, with the colors and with I think with many different ways, there was, or there still is, a lot of diversity in these teams. People that that work together, that might they would not consider themselves friends outside if they would meet, but they were able to really work really well together and challenge each other.
And challenges, and that's also a part of culture, coaching each other. So I mean, so we learn people how to bring the message that you are not happy, that Yves is always doing this, and this, and the whole team is frustrated, but nobody dares to tell Yves, look, Yves, you're just frustrating us all. I mean, but you don't know. I mean, if people are not telling it to you, I mean, you're not really aware that you are frustrating the rest of the team. So getting this culture where people can tell really well what they think about each other in a professional, respectful way is a very important element of this high performance culture that you want. I mean, and that
I really like. I like that you stress that also, because I've worked with companies before that said, "Oh, but we're a human company. We don't tell it what we don't like about each other." And it's like, no, that's totally not human at all.
No, and everybody has his strengths and weaknesses. So I mean, sometimes you're aware about your weaknesses because people talk to you. But sometimes you don't, and you're not even aware that you're blocking the team instead of helping the team. So getting those things on the table and then asking, okay, how can we help you? Do you need extra training and extra this or extra that? I mean, to really overcome this kind of weakness and to grow yourself. So growing people has been one of the drivers for me also in my career. I mean, how can I grow people, put them to the next level in their capabilities, abilities, and it's really pushing. So I've been putting people in position that say, can I do this? I'm not ready for doing it. You're ready. You will see. You will swim a little bit, but in the end, it will work.
And at the same time, you need. I think you put them at positions where people don't feel that they're ready for. You say kind of trust, and you coach, or you make sure that there is a supporting system for them. It's not like I throw you in the water and you need to swim and nobody's there. No, that's how I saw always the ecosystem that you created at Cegeka. Is okay, we push each other to go for the next level, and at the same time there are people around you that will help you, that will coach you, that will give you feedback, and that kind of brings me also to that next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share? Is there anything that you say might be good for people to learn?
I think empowerment. We come to the book, but I mean, we have been reading and discussing books with our management team, and I've been pushing people each side to out of their comfort zone. I say, look, have you tried this? I mean, doing experiments is one of the things that people should really have the courage to do it, because the things, I mean, if you, and that's again a saying, if you continue doing what you have always been doing, the results will not be different. So doing an experiment, but then also being able to take a negative result of the experiment is an important part of the way of how the agility culture can grow in a company. I mean, giving them the courage to do this kind of experiments. And yeah, and if you come to reading books, I mean, most people have difficulties in reading books, certainly books going around things for their work. So doing this in group is also reading groups is also a way of helping people in reading books and discussing the content of the book that they have been reading. So this is a part of the HR culture that I think is very important. You have to help people in getting new insights and force them in sometimes doing small experiments. It don't always have to be big experiments.
I really like that you stress also the reading groups. Well, I've learned a lot from the techniques that Joshua Koryovsky did about reading book club, and doing it a lot with customers indeed, where you read a book and you think you understand the book, and then you discuss a chapter or half of a book or whatever with different people. And I always am amazed about what I learn, what other people see in the book, where we sometimes disagree on. Okay, maybe we read something and then all in our group we said, well, we don't think this will work here, and we don't try it, or we do indeed an experiment and are surprised by it. But just having these discussions, I learn always at a deeper level about the book. I think it's important. It's not easy for people to write a book and to explain something, and then as a reader we might not always understand it immediately, and having that discussions we learn at a deeper level. And I want to move to that next question about remote work. You talked about, okay, I moved during COVID a little bit, but did you do a lot of remote work during your career before COVID, for example?
Well, I think the biggest strength, and that was before Corona, we were believing that the biggest strength is really working as a team, helping each other, coaching each other. Now, we have always had the challenge to work with our nearshore teams in Bucharest, and we have experimented with different modes of work together, and because we applied the whole discussing with each other while you are working and writing code, one in Bucharest, one in Leuven, was very, very difficult. Difficult in the sense that it costed a lot of energy to stay focused and to get this energy done, which is different than when someone is just sitting aside you and working with you as a pair. So we experimented with that, and one of our conclusions was, in the end, it's all about ownership. And so we divided the Scrum team in 3 people in Bucharest and 3 people in Leuven. In the end, nobody has real ownership because they were all almost finger pointing to each other at certain moments. So and we changed that to full teams, full team in Bucharest, full team in Leuven, and so we have different. Certainly on domain-driven design. As a principle, we had 6-8 Scrum teams, each with their own responsibility area and full ownership with local people, and that makes a huge. We found a huge difference in the performance of a team and the quality of the code that they have produced. Because they want to be proud. You mentioned people, if they are telling about their company and how they work together, they should be proud about it and not frustrated. And so those are the kind of experiments that we did. And remote working, we were all forced with Corona to work from home. We noticed that it didn't have a negative impact on people's performance as a team, because they have been working as a team and physically they have been working so long together that at that moment we were obliged to work from home, that they were also embracing all the tooling. So we said, okay, experiment with the necessary tooling to to create this kind of virtual environment, which is almost similar as being physically in the same room, and so on. So I mean, so Corona showed us and learned us, us, not only us, worldwide, that people could really be efficient, working from home, having less stress, because I mean, going to work is sometimes a very stressful experiment with all the circulation that we have.
Or lack of circulation.
Yeah, the lack of circulation. Yeah. So now I think it's a good thing that we can work more from remote. But if you
I like that you stressed also that there were already a team, I think.
Yeah.
When...
So that was my final point. If you want to create a team, then you need to spend some time together, and that is also very important to do. I lost my screen. Where is it?
Okay, I still see you.
Yeah, I still see me, but I'm looking for the window. Where is it? How is it called?
Live streaming studio on my side, at least. Streamlab is the
Streamlab
tool that we...
Yeah, I'm back.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, we talked about the team and the fact...
In the start of the project, and so the kickoff of a project is important for the team itself, to spend really time with the team, explaining sometimes what you think everybody should know, but in the end they don't know, and they should agree a kind of charter together. These are the rules of how we will collaborate and work together, and you can only do that if you spend 2 days, 3 days really together, focused on that, on how will we work, what are our rules of the game. You should do this also with your customers. And so I mean, having time with the customer to explain him how will we work, what are we expecting from you, what will we do, what can how will be the interaction if we give you a demo environment and a test environment, what should you do and how can we help you in doing the right things, right? But I mean, explaining sometimes the evident things also helps people in getting the right mindset. And if you take down the time to do the insights or the thing, also that people learn who is who from a personality and communication style, it's also very important. Yeah.
I really like that you stress that we really need to work on that team. And I don't know if you read the book, but Diana Larsen wrote a book about Liftoff, about creating such teams. What I've learned from the book is that you could even do it after a team has been created, because as a consultant, I was sometimes brought in after a team was already created, and I thought, oh, it's too late. No, if people didn't invest in that, take the time to do it with a team, it will always it's a good investment that will pay off very, very well. Thanks for bringing that up. I want to move to a book. Is there a book, and I think you've read a lot of books, is there a book that you want to talk about that you say, this is interesting? It shouldn't be the last one, but
No.
Is there anything?
The book, I don't know if you know the book, No Rules.
From Reed Hastings, I think is
So that's the CEO from Netflix, and he explains why they are so successful. The title itself is a little bit rebellion, No Rules, because it's not true, and there are a lot of rules. But its main point is a little bit the philosophy of a good retrospective. So there are no taboos. So everything can be questioned. And why are we doing this? Should we still doing this? I always told the team they could question a lot of things except the XP practices. They should never question why are we pair programming, or why are we refactoring, or why are we doing this and that. So those things, they are proven. You should not discuss those. You can discuss the way of how you do those things, but not the things itself. But so the No Rules book, for me, it was a little bit because I've given it to my management team. And then there were some managers above me who didn't read the book, but learned that I've given the book to everybody in my team, and they were seeing that as a rebellion act. Oh, what is he now going to do? No rules. But if you read the book, I mean, it's really showing that you want only the best people, the most efficient way of working. And one of the examples, if you want to launch a Brazilian movie, don't do it out of New York and say, okay, we will choose the right people, the right actors to work. Now, take a local guy who knows the Brazilian world and knows the right actors and the right people to get there the best team for this movie. So again, I mean, it's common practice. It sounds very normal, but sometimes people are thinking that they should manage everything out of the central management team. But so that was one of the books that I would recommend people to read, because it also says that at a certain moment you don't have to be afraid to fire people. So again, having good people working for you, but when they have no role anymore, you should let them go and let them make a difference somewhere else, without being or feeling obliged that you have to reward on loyalty and to keep them on board, even if they are not making the difference anymore. So it's good for the person that gets fired, because I mean, he gets a new challenge and he can go to the next level in his own career. So that was each time, because I fired not a lot of people, but still some people. But each time with the message, look, I'm helping you because you're not leaving out of yourself. You need a push. I'm giving you the push, but I'm sure that you will, and I give them then the message about the good strengths, skills that they have. As I find a job in that area, and you will be much more happier than what you are here, because here you look frustrated and not happy anymore. And we can't give you the role that you needed to get this next level in your career stuff. So this is important. I think that people.
See that a firing is indeed not always like you're bad or whatever. Maybe it's indeed that we don't have the role that is actually what you need. Maybe you do still do that job really well here, but I don't know, the department is gone, or we want to move as a company in a different direction. So I think it's really good, because in Belgium, I sometimes feel that people feel very negative about being fired as a kind of punishment, or as a kind of, I don't know, bad mark, where it's like you say, it shouldn't be that way.
No, and it's most of the time for that person maybe a little bit of shock, but afterwards a good thing that they were fired and that they could move on to do the next thing.
I agree there. It's and it's a nice example of no rules, of indeed being not afraid to do the typical thing, or it's there's a lot of things that Netflix did where they for me the what I always hear, one of the most shocking for people is their chaos monkey and their chaos engineering. We're shutting down stuff in production. And people are like, that's the opposite of what you should do. Well, actually, it's because of that they are so good at going on with tragedies, or with things that are going wrong in production.
But I mean, if you never test a disaster scenario, then at the moment there is a disaster, it will be a disaster. So I mean, so I agree. I mean, going for this kind of extreme testing chaos, creating this chaos, see what's happened, and are we prepared for getting it back on the rules, on the things. So I mean, that's important. Yeah. So another more recent book that I've been, and I'm a strong believer also of that. So it's maybe another level of agile. It's this book.
The Guide to the Economy, Ecosystem Economy.
Yeah. So Rick Ferra, you probably know him. So he's preaching a lot of companies should work in an ecosystem. So time is over where companies can think that they can do everything on their own. Even the big Microsofts of this world and others, they are working in ecosystems with partners for reaching their ultimate goal. And my last assignment was an assignment with Atos. And what they did to answer all the Flemish government application demands, they have created an Amplify partnership ecosystem. And the Amplify partners were really partners complementary to the capabilities of Atos itself, locally Atos itself. And those were companies like Capgemini, Ordina, ML6, Axi, things like that. So a lot of beautiful companies, each of them with their focus and their different strengths. And my last, I would say, achievement was really making this working and having this competitive environment working as a partner environment. And again, applying some agile practices in a way that people are really feeling, we are all in the same boat. This was communication was one of those elements, making sure that you meet those people once a month, that you give them an highlights report every week about how things were evolving and what are the next projects that are expected and things like that. So creating this ecosystem was one of the things where I say, okay, this is the future. And if I read the book of Rick Ferra, he's telling also, I mean, there are no companies anymore who can work without partners. So the creating, but then having partners, and partners is too. I mean, partners are not equal from definition. They are different and they are complementary. But you should get someone who is trying to create this good, I would say, facilitation of an ecosystem and making sure that you get out of it what can be to the benefit of the business, looking for solutions.
I really like that. And for me, I've always seen, again, looking back at the Agile community back in the early 2000s, it felt really, in a sense, a lot of us were competitors. And at the same time, we were working together, learning from each other. It was not in the structured way as you just described now. But for me, I've always seen these kind of things about, okay, we should collaborate, we should learn from each other. I remember that in the beginning, we as a community, we kind of said, okay, what companies want to learn about Agile? Okay, we organize a night at your space. You I don't know, foresee pizza and beer or whatever, and we come in and we'll help you and we'll discuss. And a lot of people there were competitors, but at the same time they were like, okay, we want to learn. And I think it's not exactly the structure like you talk about with the ecosystems, but it's really also about, okay, how could we work together? And so I do indeed believe that the next level for these kind of things is ecosystems. I agree there. Thanks for bringing up that book, because I think it's an important thing to see where we want to go. Yeah. I want to move to, for me, an interesting question, and especially talking to you, is like, what do you think is a question I didn't ask? Is there still something you want to talk about that you think is important? You talked about inspiring the world, inspiring people. Is there something you think I should also ask you to talk about?
But I'm still surprised after 42 years that our industry, our IT application development industry, is still doing so bad. So why are we not creating high quality software? So I think the next level, and that then again, some of the developers will not like that I say this, but automating the automation itself, creating the software itself is the next level. And we had the case tools in the 90s. We have now the low code environments in this period. I'm a strong believer that this is what should happen, because I mean, solving technical development issues time after time, project after project, each time the same kind of, it's not normal. I mean, if you look in the building world, how that they evolve and how almost they bring pieces of, I mean, I'm living here in Cogsa, so we see building of apartments. I mean, the apartment is built in 5 weeks, 5 levels. But they bring the whole piece, and they're all prepared up front in the factory, and then they just deliver it. I've been the last 4 or 5 years working with low-code projects, OutSystems, to mention one of the companies. I mean, it is amazing what they do out of the box, and how that they help you in being focused on the business aspects and the real issues, what you want to automate. And I think that's, for me, the future. I mean, that of course the license models of those low-code development environments are sometimes, I mean, not motivating you to go into this direction, to go for a low-code environment. But some big companies made a choice, and I don't think they regret, because I mean, they can really focus on the business issues again, and not on all the technical struggles where developers are confronted with.
Yeah, it's and indeed. Well, in the defense of the software world, I would say we've been only doing this for not even 100 years, where the building industry has been going on for a few thousand years. But I do agree, there is still, we should be, we're working with tools that can help our own tools much more than in the building industry, I would say. And it's insane how little some of the best practice or good practices are used, and that people there are things in the building industry. It is forced. They have to use the good practices and everything. I have no idea how it was 1,000 years ago. So maybe it took 1,000 years before we got there. But we're not there in the IT industry. That's for sure. It's insane. And especially because we have examples where we can do it. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and our development world itself is evolving so fast. I mean, and the tools that we had 10 years ago are not good anymore. So we go to the next kind of tools, and so the refactoring, the technical depth that we are creating each time by just the next evolution of the tooling, which is necessary for doing software development, is also a big challenge, because if we look to Venturis again, maintaining Venturis is not only a question of business requirements that are changing and that you need to fix, but it's also the technical depth from a tooling perspective, and the open source components that you're using within the architecture. After a while, they're not longer hot, and there is the next level, and you have to evolve. I think so. Being able to have the budgets to do that. So one of the things I introduced, and that's maybe a good thing to take into account, is that if you do a project budget, there is always a maintenance budget afterwards. There was a time where people were thinking 15% of the project budget is needed every year again for doing the maintenance. But we dropped that to 10%. But we say a part of the 10% is 2.5% for doing the technical refactorings, which are obliged in our sector because we are moving to the next tooling and to the next thing. I mean, I was able to sell that to our customers to convince them that either you do this or after 7 or 8 years, you have to do a total redevelopment of the whole application. I mean, make your choice.
And it's better to keep it constantly good because then instead of retearing everything. It's interesting that you say that because in the I think about the book. I think the book is called How Buildings Learn. In that book, it says that the cost of a building is so the cost of building a building is 1. And then the total cost is 3. So the maintenance and everything until a building is broken down is 3 times as high as actually building a building or house or whatever.
Yeah.
And that and most people don't see it. We build a house and we think about I exaggerate. If I meet €1 million, if I have €1 million, I might be able to build a house. But we forget that in the long run, it will cost us a lot more.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and indeed, it's good that you were able to talk and negotiate with your customers. Like, okay, it's not just the building; it's also about the maintenance. It's also about what do we do afterwards. Because I think it's
also an element, and because we decided to do that in fixed price in the maintenance and the technical refactorings. But there was also a motivation to say you should give us a long-term contract and not a contract for 2 years, 5 years, but one for 10 years, 15 years, because I mean that's where you get the real benefits out of it, and you get our commitment that we will make sure that it will remain state of the art even after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So it is doable. So I sold it and we did it. It was good business for all parties.
It's I think this is going back to your ecosystem. You want to work for a long time with a client. You want to, and like you say, software. It's no longer a little small thing that is created in a corner, and it's the projects like you're talking about, Social Security, the everything else. These are really important parts of their companies, of their own clients, and the way they're working. So then you definitely need the quality for all these things.
Yeah.
It's an important part there. Okay, I want to move to, I said before, almost the last question. This is the really last question. Who do you think I should invite next? Who do you think, or you consider that it might be good for me to talk to next?
Well, I don't know if you have talked already to Jan van Reusel.
Jan is on my list, but has not been invited yet. So in this way, I'm really happy that you would invite him.
I mean, a lot of things that I've been doing would not be possible without Jan. And so Jan was my right hand when we were creating this Venturis project and then the software factory. And then he created his own company, Collabora. I think now already 5, 7 years ago.
I don't remember anymore, but it was indeed before Corona. So
But he's I mean, I think a good next person to interview.
And indeed, he also, maybe that's also interesting to mention. I think he created his company based also on a lot of the principles that both of you worked together when you created. So that's it.
He was no compromises on those things. So I mean, he took a lot of people from Cegeka to start this company. But I mean, those were all people who really made a difference. And the good thing was that even after all those people left, we didn't lose within Cegeka the culture and the way of how doing things. So the ownership was really very well spread within the company. So.
And it kind of stresses that in a way that sometimes we split two teams and we create the same kind of thing. In this way, it was spread between two companies, and two companies had the same kind of culture in a way. Is that not how bees work sometimes also when they split off with different kind of colonies? And I think it's a very nice example how that culture was so strong in the whole project and in the whole company. I think that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you might move on for multiple kind of reasons, but at the end, it showed how powerful that is.
Yeah, and maybe that's you don't have to be afraid to split teams, because teams themselves, they have just finished a good project, they were doing well together, and then say, okay, now from this team we will create 3 other teams, 3 different projects, 3 different things. The people themselves will maybe say, oh, yeah, we like to stay together and things like that, but it's not good for the growth of the company. You have to split them and inject new people into creating a new mix of people and making sure that they are educating the next.
Yeah, and growing also, like you said earlier on, growing as a person. If you keep a team together, at some point you don't learn anymore because you've given each other all the feedback there is to give, because we have also kind of blind spots. And if you I really believe in that. We've I've talked already a lot also with Johan Lybaert about these kind of things. Sometimes if we want to help companies, it's better to first create one team and then split off and then grow that way. We have much more impact than trying to work on 10 teams at the same time. It's like, no, it's much better to make it start it small, but then not be afraid to split these teams.
But also that it takes courage to do that. So because the people themselves will not ask for it, so you have to force that situation.
Yeah, I agree there. Johan, I really want to thank you for your time. It's been a wonderful conversation. I'm really happy that you wanted to take that time. Like you said, you're kind of in pre-retirement a little bit, and at the same time still interesting in inspiring other people. If people want to contact you, what could be a good way for people to find you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is for me. I'm looking to LinkedIn every day, so so people can contact me there and ask to get a call or a discussion. Now we will see if there is an engagement to help them.
And like we say, you will ask them some hard questions, and if they're ready to go on, they can continue.
Yeah, I'm at the stage of my career that I'm not looking for work just for the work. I'm looking for doing interesting things and helping companies in getting changes done, but then they have to accept, I would say, my vision, my feedback on things, and it's not always done in the most political correct way. I'm not a believer of that also. Sometimes I think you have to give them the message in a shocking way.
Well, sometimes people, if you're too polite, they don't hear the message. I think it's good to be polite and to be nice, but if at the moment they don't hear it, at some point we need to say, stop, this is not working. You're not listening, or you're not hearing me. And they might be shocked indeed. Of course, that's not something you will do on the first day, I think, but we need to make sure that you're listening.
Well, sometimes I say, let me talk to a few people. If you talk to those people, most of the time people know what's going wrong. But they have been giving the message multiple times, and the top management is not listening to them. So I tell them, you're not listening to your people. They are telling you already for months that this and this. A lot of times about technical depth and things like that. We have to go fast. We have to develop our next business features and things like that. But the code is crap. We will not be able to maintain it. So, okay, do they know it? Yeah, we told them already several times. Okay. So then I tell them, and I say, okay, look, if you're not taking this message seriously, then I'm not interested to help you, because you don't want a good working application for the coming 10, 15 years. We just want some application that you can sell. So most of the time in startups, that's one of the pitfalls. They want to have very fast, a lot of business features. But and then they say, if we get the money and we go to the next level, then we will rebuild it. So, okay, it's a way of doing things.
Well, there might be, if you're really still looking for your market fit, that might be a good thing. But from the moment you think, okay, this is what we want to do, you need to build it with quality. Always, it's impossible to put a foundation under an existing house. That's just impossible. But ask that to people in Italy with their tower. But that's what they're trying to do for a long time. It might be an interesting attraction, but it's not really a very healthy place to live in. So that's thank you for that time and that all these insights. I'm really, like I said earlier on, I was really happy that we could have that conversation, and I hope that many people will like all the insights that you gave. So thanks for it.
It was a pleasure to share my visions, and my experiences. Okay, bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.